Dear friends, welcome to MedDevice podcast series. Our guest today is Dr. P. Siva Kumar, one of India's most respected leaders in the medical technology and diagnostic industry. With over 35 years of experience across leading global and Indian organizations, Dr. Shiva has been instrumental in bringing cutting edge healthcare technologies to India and mentoring the next generation of MedTek innovators. He has held several leadership roles, including the CEO of Trivitron Healthcare, Managing Director of Siemens Healthcare Diagnostics, as well as the country manager at Agilent Technologies. And he continues to advise healthcare companies, startups, as well as academic institutions on strategy, innovation, and commercialization. A doctorate in biochemistry from Osmania University with a postdoctoral research in the US, Dr. Shiva combines scientific depth with strategic vision, a true bridge between innovation and impact in the medtech world. Honored to host you, Dr. Shiva.
Thank you, Sangeet. It's pleasure is mine. I really appreciate it for inviting me for this podcast.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Shiva, today we will ask you a few questions to have your insights on each one of them. To start with, you started your career in the academia and research, in fact, and later moved into the leadership roles in diagnostics and medtech space. So, what triggered your transition from a research scientist to a corporate leader?
Okay, I after finishing my PhD, like most of my contemporaries during those days, we went to the US for a postdoctoral fellowship. And the reason why most of us have gone to the US is to learn new techniques and then understand life better than here because we had a lot of infrastructural challenges in
Yeah.
India. So I went there, but one thing was in my case, I promised my parents that I will come back. Okay, so nothing kind of held me back there. So after 5 years or so, I came back. Before coming back, I thought that I should be doing something what I have been doing in the research area. I was specifically working on the chronic myelogenous leukemia area, and very good. In those days, it is called as signal transduction. So I wanted to apply the same kind of a thing in the cancer areas that are prevalent in India. For example, oral cavity cancer. So I came back to India and I thought that I would join any of the academic institutions like a university or a research center. Fortunately or unfortunately, I could not get into an academic institution for several reasons. So the opportunity came to me to join the industry, okay, because of my expertise in techniques. So Ranbaxy Diagnostics called me to take up a technical position in their division. Ranbaxy Diagnostics was in those days one of the leading diagnostic companies in India. So they offered me a technical position as a quality assurance manager. Uh, the diagnostics was very new to me. I did not have any understanding of it. So the first change is the moving into industry and then into an area where I have no expertise. Once I got there, I immediately got into the day-to-day operations of quality control and how to manage the things. I had a good team helping me, and I learned a lot of things from my people, technicians who were working with me. And then, gradually I felt that, the connect between the customer and the technical team in the organization is missing. So I had an opportunity to meet with my manager and told him that I think, we should be able to communicate with the customer from the technical side because the customers are all mostly technical. So I went to them and then, I have visited some of the customers. Very, very unusual for a quality control manager or a quality assurance manager to go to the field. So I had
Right.
the opportunity to go there. In fact, my first customer was Apollo Hospital, Chennai. So
Okay.
I still recollect that, it's very clear in my mind. Went there, resolved some problems, and then I started communicating with the customers even through the mails. In those days, it is all postal mail, right?
Yeah.
So then gradually what happened is customers started realizing that somebody who is able to give us this information or empathize with them, then they will be able to get their solutions. So it spread, and the sales team was very big. About 100 people were the sales team in Ranbaxy Diagnostics.
Right.
So they told my management that we should bring him into the field. Okay.
Right.
So then my management asked me to come to the marketing as a technical services manager.
Okay.
It was a lot of hesitation, always in a pharmaceutical company, getting into the marketing would lead to, we do not know what kind of pressures will be there. And then with two small kids in an unknown area like Delhi, moving from Hyderabad. So went there, but took the chance, and then I adapted myself to that. Okay,
Right.
so one of the key things is adaptation when I changed it, and I
Yeah.
quickly grown in the position, and then eventually I became the general manager because I have been given some cross-functional responsibilities, like
Right.
bringing in new technologies. In that one, date bearing, bringing in date bearing to India was one
Yeah.
of the key responsibilities. So we brought in there. I was very closely involved.
Yeah.
So then, rest is history. So I grew well, and then, at some point of time, I realized that, beyond beyond diagnostics, I should go into another area. So opportunity came in analytical industry. So I moved to Thermo Fisher briefly, and then Agilent Technology, and then growing. So in summary, what I would say is that adaptation to the change was one of the key factors, and then curiosity to learn was one
Yeah.
of the important aspects, and then teamwork and communication. These are the things that help me to bridge science, strategy, and execution. So that's how my academic or research to business has moved in.
Wonderful. So from Ranbaxy, you moved to Dade and then which became Siemens.
Yeah,
That's
Ranbaxy sold its diagnostics business to Date Bearing. So Date Bearing came as an Indian subsidiary, and a couple of years later, Date Bearing was acquired by Siemens globally. So I became the general manager. At that time, Siemens acquired Date Bearing. They acquired Bayer Diagnostics and also another company called as DPC. DPC
right.
was represented by Trivitron at that time.
Yeah.
So for all the three organizations, I had the opportunity to lead the team. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, having worked with these kind of global giants such as Siemens, Thermo Fisher, Agilent, Trivitron, what were the most defining leadership lessons you carried across these organizations?
See, Sangeet, one of the key important aspects is integrity. Okay. So for me, always that is an important aspect.
Yeah.
And the second thing is commitment to the customer. Okay. If you have made a commitment to the customer, you need to honor it. When the customer accepted our organization and uses our product, it's very important that we need to have this.
Right.
So the other important aspect is the products that we were selling are all technical products.
Right.
So the leadership is not just the excellence in technical, but there are many other things like customer focus, building empowered teams. What is important is you should have trust in your teams. Okay,
Yeah.
that is another important aspect of it.
Yeah.
And when I moved to, like, Thermo Fisher and Agilent Technologies, it's a completely a different ball game. Okay, previously I was dealing with diagnostic labs and hospitals. Now it
Yes.
comes mostly academic institutions, pharma laboratories, quality assurance. Products are different, but you need to align and adapt to those things very, very, very. Adapting to those things is very, very important. So I summarize that the leadership is all about curiosity, adaptation, most importantly, integrity. So I think, these are the lessons that I carried, and each of the organizations taught me different things. So this is how I summarize on the leadership lessons that I have learned. And you will
Well,
learn from a lot of your colleagues and then
mm,
managers.
yeah,
Fortunately, what happens is after the Ranbaxy diagnostic tenure, most of my managers were either European or American managers. So you would learn quite a lot from them, and then that's that's another important aspect.
yeah, their perspective. So let's come to the challenges that you have faced, because I'm sure it was not easy from a researcher, scientist to business leader across industries, diagnostic to research and academics. So what were your kind of challenges? Which role challenged you the most, and why, and some of the learnings around it?
Every day was a challenge. As you go to the office, or even before you get up from the bed and look at the mail itself, is a challenge. And then there will be a lot of concerns, problems, customers will do it, and the teams
Yeah,
will communicate to you, and all those things.
yeah,
But what is important is you need to understand each one of them, and then look at it. Even if it is a small concern, I think
yeah,
what is important is you need to give enough attention to those kinds of things. I
yeah,
think that is one. There are plenty of instances where I have learned a lot of things, but I would like to quote two or three challenges which have taught me quite a bit.
yeah.
Okay, when we moved from Ranbaxy to date bearing, or when we introduced the date bearing product line in India through Ranbaxy, I inherited a huge inventory of instrumentation.
Right.
Whoever has done it, that we cannot go back to those things, and the argument is not there. As one of the leadership members in the team, opportunity was, our obligation was to liquidate those instruments.
Yeah.
Okay. The challenge came there. The instruments are all closed systems. You
Right.
know what closed systems are. Like,
Yeah.
the instrument and the reagent have to be bought from the same company.
Yeah. Of course.
In India, it was not heard of. So very few multinational companies were there. Few automated analyzers were available in India. So what happened is I had an inventory of 20 machines, which are all closed systems, and each one varying from 20 lakh rupees in those days to almost about 60, 70 lakh rupees.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to do it. And then, going to the customer, they say that, I am bound by your instrument, and then
Commitment.
you are making me to buy your thing. If something goes wrong, you will run away. So those are the kind of questions that used to come in. So
Yeah.
we had to find some way to do it. So what we have done at the leadership meeting is that, okay, let us find an innovative way to liquidate this mission, because my management has been putting pressure on me to liquidate, because they are losing money every day because of the inventory cost.
Yeah.
So what we did is, okay, let us see if we can put in a reagent rental scheme where we will give the machine and try
Right.
to recover the cost of the machine through the reagent sale.
Right.
So we were one of the early birds in introducing that system in India. So
Right.
fortunately, some of the big laboratories like, St. John's Hospital, then Apollo Hyderabad, then, Bombay Hospital, these were all the customers that we were able to capture. And it
Right.
was not easy to introduce those things and establish a contract with them. So
Yeah.
I generally tell a lot of people that, I used to sleep outside the purchase department of St. George for a month, in order to get the go ahead from them. Okay.
St. John's, Bangalore.
St. John's, Bangalore. So they have subsequently used it for 20, 23, 24 years after we
Yeah.
installed it. That's itself. And then, with that, what has happened is we built a relationship. Okay. So once we did that, and then what we have done is, when we introduce such kind of systems, providing service is important, because you have to build credibility. because the new systems have come in. Market people talk to each other, customers talk to each other, so feedback goes in. So you need to be at the top of the service that you deliver to them. So the best thing that could happen was I had 3 or 4 service engineers who came from the competition. We trained them, and then we ensured that we are 24 by 7. I used to get calls from St. John's midnight, 12 o'clock, and by 6 o'clock we have to solve the problem because they have a lot of samples coming early in the morning.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
giving an example. So
yeah.
service was very important. So because of that, by word of mouth, we were able to do it. In about 5 to 6 years, we installed 500 instruments. That
Wow.
is a big one. And then, initially they would say we will not use all the parameters, but gradually, once we go and provide the service, being a technical guy, I also learned how to provide them the clinical application support. So I myself used to go and resolve a lot of technical issues, and then build the relationship with the doctors, and then we have been very successful. So this is one great challenge where I learned is customer, customer, customer. Customer focus is very, very critical.
Wonderful.
Then the second one is very challenging. It taught me a lot of things, people management, integration, cultural shift from one organization to another. Globally, Siemens decided to acquire 3 companies, and each of the 3 companies have completely different kind of cultures. One was customer focus, another was product focus, another was distributor related thing, and then the service levels were quite different. So, and one team had a very high level of productivity, the other team had got lot of people, less productivity per person. And then that when you are integrating multiple companies, there are a lot of challenges, people to people interactions, back end back end murmurs, all those things there. That
Yes.
is when I acquired the position of managing director Siemens Healthcare Diagnostics. I had to manage these three things.
Yeah.
We had to the Bayer Diagnostic came with a manufacturing unit, and it was a publicly listed company. So that was another challenge. And then because it's a manufacturing unit, there were labor involved here. So there were labor unions, and I had a mandate to let go about 100 people. These are all challenges. And then what we have done is we worked with the team closely, made them understand, worked with the management, built those kinds of and so structured change management process was implemented. So these are couple of key challenges that I had, and I thought that these are top of my thing. But
And
every organization has challenges. When I moved to Agile Technology, very structured organization, everything moves by the system. You cannot deviate from there. That is another challenge. How do you make people to implement CRM? Okay,
yeah, yeah,
so I always used to say that CRM implementation is like brushing your teeth every day. If you don't update your CRM tool, then you are gone. So that is another thing. So we have been able to do it, and in my tenure at Agilent, we achieved first time $100 million revenue from India. So
wow,
that also is very critical. And then we did that one. So these are some of the challenges that I think that I faced, and a lot of learnings.
wonderful. So, someone who has introduced quite a few new technologies to Indian diagnostic and medtech space, what do you see as the biggest technology gaps in India today?
This is a very big and then a topic uh, where we have a lot of challenges, and we
Mhm.
are still going through them. Okay,
Right.
if you go back 30 years, India never had any contemporary technology introduced. Multinational companies never introduced contemporary technologies.
Right.
So there were a lot of gaps. and India was not doing any indigenous innovation.
Yeah.
Okay, accessibility of healthcare, because we are talking of diagnostic services accessibility in the remote areas, even in two tier, three tier cities, or even in some of the tier one cities, it was challenging. Third thing
Yes.
is that skilled manpower is a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I think, I will list few of the biggest gaps is lack of indigenous innovation. Okay, why I say this as the top of the thing is that when you our requirements in India is completely different. 70% of the population lives in the rural area,
Yeah.
70% of the infrastructure is in the urban areas. But how do you reach the rural areas?
Yeah.
So, and rural areas cannot afford high-end instrumentation or something that the multinational companies are able to provide.
Yeah.
So you need to have solutions uh, that are adaptable to the two tier, three tier cities. Multinational companies do not want to invest their R&D funding into developing anything for the Indian, even though they all want the market of India, but they don't realize that. As a country manager, as a representative of India, I had a lot of battles to fight with my management globally, but still very difficult to understand. So what has added to that is there is lack of indigenous innovation. We did not have people who were developing those kinds of, except leaving some semi-automated analyzers by one or two companies, but those are also only assembly and those kinds of things. So that is a major challenge. Why that is a challenge? Because we did not have the supporting industry like spare parts, and then if you look at the reagents, some critical chemicals like enzymes or cofactors or antibodies are not there. So these are all needed. Okay, technologies need to be simplified, cost effective, and they should be robust so that the primary healthcare center could use. The other important aspect is, we still have not done the digital health integration. If you look at
Mhm.
it, when you go to a doctor, when you go to a lab, we still have paper kind of a thing, doctor prescription on paper. We forget, next time go to the doctor again, he has to recollect. There is no electronic medical records. It's improving, but we are quite far away from this. We need to use the real world data to see that some things is developed. The third point, which I alluded in the beginning, is the skill gap. Okay, today the kids coming out of colleges and universities are not employable. Okay, we are still stuck with, we may probably talk about academia and industry. Probably you will have something to ask on that one at a later part of this conversation.
I
But
will.
oh,
Since
okay,
this
thanks.
topic you have come, maybe I was framing one or two questions over it in my mind.
Yeah. So the skill gap is huge. They are taught only what is there in the book. They don't have the hands-on experience. So when they come out, they are not employable. So that gap is there. So we need to have training. We need to have some of the internships that are there. The last point that I would like to put is understanding of the regulatory framework. Okay, that is very important. So even though the Skill Development Council of Government of India is trying to put it, but by the time it reaches our industry, MedTek or the diagnostic industry, I think it would take time. I hope the government listens to it and then gives a priority on this one, because healthcare is one of the priority areas. So hopefully they will put it and then ensure that something happens in that. So skill gap is one of those things. So these are some of the broad areas where there are gaps, and then we need to work on fixing those things. I think uh,
Yeah, this is a very pertinent point that you're raising about skill gap, and I also know that you have worked extensively in bridging that gap between the academia and the industry. So, why do you think that this gap is still persisting in India, and how can we reduce that gap, the skill gap actually?
I think it also relates to infrastructure. Okay.
Right?
Infrastructure again relates to the budgetary allocation for education and research. Okay.
Right.
So if you go to a typical university, leave about established universities. You go to some of the private universities also, and
Right.
other universities, except for IITs, triple ITs, and some old universities. The infrastructure in terms of laboratories are very poor. Number one. Number two, the curriculum is not confined to it is confined to only theoretical study. It is not there is no practical understanding or ability of the students to use the equipment and then get the hands-on training, so they are not able to do that one. So when they go out and suppose they come to the industry, if I ask them to operate a machine, they have never done it, because in the universities they don't teach it, because they don't have the infrastructure. The all they are doing is they are showing the videos or the YouTubes, and then they are learning. And you can't learn operating an equipment use watching a YouTube clip. So that is one thing. The next important thing is our academia curriculum is all bookish and theoretical. We need to
Mhm.
go much beyond that one. The other important aspect, I know that some of the faculties will not like this, but what happens is the faculty themselves are not equipped to train the people. So these are some of the challenges that are there. And so let us not blame only the academia. Let us blame or take the blame from the industry side as well. From the industry side, what they have done, they need people, but they are not getting it. What did you do to go and approach the universities, build infrastructure, collaborate with them, what you need, make them understand, the solutions that they can develop. Those are the kind of things. So the industry is also at fault. They should establish some internship programs. They should conduct workshops. Should send their technical people to the universities to conduct workshops. So this is another thing. So the three stakeholders who are to be blamed, okay, probably blame is a negative word, but still, I would like to use it. Academia itself, industry, and the government. So these are my reasons of understanding on why there is a gap and why we are not able to get talented people.
But how would an industry take them in? Because in the first place, they are not employable.
So that's why what you have to do is you have to approach, industry should approach in their
Right.
area the academic institutions,
Right. Right.
and then build some kind of, so they may donate machines, they may send faculty. Say for example, if I am a technical guy from the industry, I go to the university and help them understand what they can do. And many a times when I go to the industries and universities and conduct the workshop, I tell them that, okay, you are going to be a postgraduate in biochemistry or molecular biology or microbiology. What is the thing that you will do? All they say is, I want to be a technician. There are many roles beyond technician that they can do it. They could be a product manager, they could be a marketing guy, they could be a regulatory guy, they could be clinical application specialist, a product specialist, and also could be in the management leading the teams, because some
Yeah.
people with technical background would have the ability to uh, do the
Lead people.
administrative non-academic work as well. So
Right.
the industries are not doing it. Definitely they are not doing it, and they have no idea. And the universities are not also approaching the industries to do it. They are doing it, but with a pure focus on whether my students can be appointed post at the campus after their course is completed. It is all restricted to that, but there is no discussion beyond that. So that is the reason. I think we have to make the internships mandatory in the universities, and you should make industries to see that they have to have certain number of people or certain number of hours to be provided for the academic institutions, academic students, so that they can train them. So I think it has to move that way. Otherwise, it's quite challenging.
Yeah, great. So, can you tell us more about your current work at ESI MedTech and the kind of impact you are aiming to create in the India's MedTech ecosystem?
At the ESI MedTech is an organization, one man army. I am the only person here. Okay. I use quite a few people in the allied functions to take the support. For example, if I need some regulatory support, I will take from somebody externally and make them understand with my collaborators on those kinds of things. So it is a ecosystem where I am facilitating the global players to come to India. Okay.
Mm,
Because many of them do not have an understanding of how it works in India. If you talk to some of the multinational companies who have technologies and who have burned their fingers by entering India through small time players. Okay, they said that they show us the sky, and then we have not been able to take the benefit of it. So they are disappointed, and there is a lot of hesitation in terms of their aspirations to enter India. So what I do is that I will work with them, give them the understanding on how it works, and then who are the players that they should collaborate with. If they have to work with some government, they should go it. If they have to do some validation studies, they have to do it. For example, we are working on one cancer technology product for cervical cancer thing. So
mm,
what is important is you need to do the validation studies and then ensure that regulatory approvals are given. So I
yeah.
work on those things. Second thing that I do is I work very closely with a lot of startups. I am working
Mm,
with about 8 to 10 startups who are incubated at different centers. For example, Atal Incubation Centers. In the C Camp, there are a lot of startups. So these are all the places where startups are there. Unfortunately,
yeah.
startups do not have an understanding of the market.
Mm,
They do not have an understanding of the needs in the market. They have a fantastic knowledge on the technology or the expertise that they have in the technology. But
mm,
based on the technology, they would like to spend their time and build a product. But at
yeah.
the end of the day, that product has to be useful. So what
Yeah.
is important is before going to develop and spend money and then utilize your time or waste your time, it's important to know what it is. So I guide them on that one. Second
Wonderful.
thing is the go to market strategies. They are not aware of how to enter into the market.
Right.
Should they do it directly? Should they do it through a distribution network? Or should they build a solid marketing team? A startup, the co-founder or co-founder, they think that they can do all the functions. It's not possible. Okay. They are spending time on the technology and the development of the product. But if they have to do the other aspects of it and reach the market, they do not have it. So I spend a lot of time in mentoring them,
Yeah.
how to avoid mistakes and scale faster, and then transfer some of the academic thoughts into market ready products. So these are some of the things that I do at ESI MedTech. So I hope I have answered the question to you.
Yeah. So coming to the startups, if you can tell me what are the common mistakes that these startups make and where you help them?
They have no idea of what is needed in the market. 95% of them, I think that they have no idea. uh, because you develop a product, blow up money, time
Yep.
and efforts, and at the end of the day, if the product is not marketable, if the
Yeah.
product is not giving revenue, it is not going. And most of the things, again, I don't blame them. everything is like, valuation, and then, selling the company and start another one and all those things. I think they should go beyond that. Okay.
Mhm.
The second important thing that they are missing is they are not able to collaborate with people who would use their product. For example, if they develop a product for a lab or a hospital, they need to work with them to see whether their product is working there and what kind of results it is giving. And
Yeah.
then, nothing will work on again on presentations and all those things. So
Mm.
I help them understand those kinds of things. And then, market potential is another very important area that they should have an understanding. So
Mm.
I help them, but these are all some of the things. See, looking at only the money and funding seems to be a lot in the startup arena. I think that mindset should slightly change. Money is important. You need the money. You need the money to recruit people. You need the money to buy the equipment, etc. But at the same time, you have to understand these kinds of things if you have to be successful. There are a couple of examples. One in Karnataka, I don't want to name them. So they have done this one and they have done an excellent job. And then they realize the need in the market, and then they are adding additional products in their thing based on the market feedback. So I think startups have a long way to go. But it is good that is happening. Since
Wonderful.
multinational companies are not investing in R&D, we should be able to use the startups for them, and they should be encouraged in terms of given proper funding. One of the greatest challenges for them is the money, so they are not
Mhm.
able to get it. Yeah.
Mhm. Great. So, what differentiates your advisory role today compared to your earlier leadership positions in large corporations?
See, in the corporate world, I was a decision maker
Mm.
and executor. Okay, so that is the in summary, if I have to make that statement.
Yeah.
Whereas in the current role, it is a mentor, guide,
Mm.
strategic influencer.
Yeah.
So these are kind of thing. I'll give you two or three examples on how what is the difference between corporate position and what I am doing now.
Yeah.
Uh, in the corporate, I have the direct P&L responsibility. Every
Mm.
month, you need to deliver the numbers, both in terms of top line, bottom line, and you need to execute. And then, the results are constantly monitored.
Yeah.
In case of the advisory role, it is
Yeah.
more of strategic guidance,
Yeah.
mentorship, influence the leadership team to help make the right kind of decisions.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, it is all driving the teams and achieving the business outcomes, whereas
Yeah.
as a mentor, it is enabling them and capability building, guiding young leaders, helping the organizations to structure their teams. Many of them lack this one. They do not know how to structure their teams and aligning them with the long term strategy. So these are some of the things. In case of a corporate thing, thrill of building business and leading large teams is what pumps you up. Whereas in the advisory role, it is good to contributing to the growth of the organization or growth of the ecosystem, and make sure that they avoid the pitfalls, scale faster, and develop the next generation leaders. So these are some of the things that are happening in the current role. So these, I hope I have given some
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
those things.
yeah, great. I mean, for the benefit of the viewers, I would also like to add that Dr. Shiva is our advisor at Sandstrat, which I have formed 2 years back. And Sandstrat is a strategic advisory firm that has the largest team of IVD experts in India. and we are exclusively focused on IVD and allied industry. And each of these experts that we have in Sandstrat have more than 20-25 years expertise in managing large companies. And we are so honored that Dr. Shiva is one of our advisors at Sandstrat. Thank you, Dr. Shiva, for that.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Sangeet. Yeah.
Right. So, how has India's medtech and diagnostic landscape evolved over the last, say, about 20-30 years? And where do you see this heading over the next 10 years?
A very good question. Old people like me, when I look at it 30 years back, the whole industry, medtech industry in general, and more specifically the diagnostic, was very highly fragmented, and it was in an infancy stage. And as I told you earlier, the contemporary technologies were not introduced in India by the multinational companies. So we did not have an access, and even the communication channels or the infrastructure like internet, email was also not available. Very little was available those days. So it has to be only through the facts. And also, if you are looking at those kinds of things, we were way behind, and then we never imagined that. Uh, Gradually what happened is, we started interacting with the multinational companies. Our ability to communicate with them and make them understand that India is a potential market. When I give an example specifically confined to diagnostic industry, the greatest example is open system versus closed system. Okay. The bigger hospitals used to be buying instruments, but they were using the reagents from any third party.
Yeah.
Okay. What will happen is, there would be a blame game between the reagent supplier and the instrument supplier. But gradually it has changed, and then it has moved to the closed system to open system over a period of time. And then we were all very highly dependent on the multinational companies for good technologies. There was not much of Indian companies. uh, Over 3 decades, what I have seen is an import dependency to a make in India mindset. I won't say that we have completely shifted to make in India, but at
Yeah.
least everybody thinks about it, right from the government to the people, universities, and companies. They are all looking at make in India as a drive. And we are moving from a fragmented system to a organized system. And then when you come to the technology, lot of manual systems to the automated systems, uh, including the digital analyzers. What happens is, when you have a digital connectivity to the analyzer, even 2 tier, 3 tier cities can be accessed, and then you will have an accessibility of the healthcare. Okay, these are. And when I look at the coming few years, 10 years, and one more thing is that lot of people have started setting up the manufacturing. Thought process is there. Few of them have established the infrastructure, even though they are struggling at this point of time to grow the business. I think they will be there. I think they need to be supported well. When I look at the in the next coming 10 years, I think we would definitely have indigenous platforms.
Right.
I'm very confident about that. There are some companies who are doing it. They will happen, and we will. What is needed for the country is affordable point of care solutions. Okay, you will not have talent in the remote areas. There is lot of requirement for something like point of care. That means where the patient is there at his bedside or in his neighborhood, point of care solutions. And home diagnostics is penetrating aggressively. Home diagnostics is another area that is where. And with the Ayushman Bharat digital mission, I think we are going to link the devices. Health records will be maintained. Once we have the health records and data availability, AI will become an integral part of the overall things. And then with industry and academia coming closer, I think the intention of the government to push that academia industry relationship grows up. I think the skilled manpower will be there. And then, the other important aspect is in the medical devices, now the regulation has come. MDR 17, medical devices regulation 17 has come. So that will align with a lot of the international standards, and we will be able to export our technologies or our products outside India.
Yes.
So I think, we could eventually become an export hub for medical devices. So there
Wonderful.
is a lot of change over the last 30 years. I'm sure, hope I'll be there to see the next 10 years happening, and then, the greener pastures will come in.
Yeah, when we talk about India being an IVD powerhouse,
Mm.
today we know that China is the powerhouse. Given that a lot of Chinese products are coming into India, we import and we sell it here. So, uh, are the Indian MedTech startups ready to compete with these global players, especially the Chinese ones?
I visited China recently in the last 1 year, 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The amount of infrastructure development is humongous. Okay.
Right.
And then, they have the intention, or the government has got the willpower to invest or fund the entrepreneurs and build that kind of an infrastructure.
Yeah.
Even for a small product, they have built huge infrastructure and they are able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that has to come in India. Okay. Government has got a major role to play in terms of doing that. Okay. How much ever we crib about startups are not doing, they are not understand the need of the market, etc., etc. But what is
Yeah.
important is, you need to have the government invest into this thing and then doing it. I don't see immediately that we will be able to do it, but I think, we have the technical competency, and
Yeah.
we have the manpower, and we have the ground in terms of the academic institutions to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will be able to do it. So, but it will take time. I do not want to be quoted, but, I would say that we are at least 20, 25 years behind China in terms of the infrastructure and technology. So we need to learn lessons from there.
That's a long way to go.
Yeah,
20,
it's
25 years.
yes, 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 yes.
So, you have been with MNCs and Indian companies at leadership roles. And what advice would you give to young professionals, Dr. Shiva, who aspires to become leadership, who aspires to take up leadership roles in the medtech space?
Okay, three, four things very clear. One of them, you should have the
Right.
passion of what you are doing. If you do not have the passion, how much ever you do the other things, it's not going to work. So, first of all, your passion. You should be curious. One has to be curious to learn. Okay. The second thing is adapt, adaptability and change. Either change and adaptability, or adaptability and change. So you should have the mindset to change and
Yeah.
then adapt to the new conditions.
Yeah.
Then, you need to be people focused. We always think that once I become a manager, I have 5 people reporting to me, I can be a boss. No, you need to be one of them, and you should be responsible for that. As we were talking some time back, so what did Abdul Kalam do? Dr. Abdul Kalam, when there was a failure, he came to the front.
Yeah.
And when there was a success, he sent his team to the front.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the kind of a thing that a leader should have. So buildings, you need to have, because our products are all technical, you need to have a technical foundation. Then
Yes.
second thing is, and you should at least be able to understand the technology. Lot of leaders currently, I see many of the medtech companies are headed by finance guys. So
Yeah.
it's not easy for them. So they don't have an understanding of the technology before they took up this role, but they have adapted to that understanding of the technology, and then they did that. So that is technical adaptation is what is required. Then you have to be curious, you need to be passionate. I think these are some of the things. And one last advice I'll give, okay, based on my experience,
Yeah.
when I moved from a technical role to the marketing role or to the business role,
Yeah.
there was a lot of thought process that went through. I had to discuss with my late father quite a bit. He was resisting that. Uh, I moved to a marketing role. He said that what you have is enough. Why are you will be neglecting the family and all kind of things. But somehow we were able to come to an understanding, and then we I have been successful in what I have done. But I think that that success came in because I adapted to the change, faced the challenges, and then at every step curious to learn. One last thing I would like to do. Many people miss. I think current generation. I don't blame them, but that is what it is. You should be in the field, whether you are at the top level or you are in the front line. If you are in the field and closer to the customer, you will learn. I used to be in the field 18 to 22 days in a month. Okay. So that's the kind of a thing that is needed. If you are in the field, you will understand what your team requires, what the customer requires, and what the competition is doing. So all these things put together will give you a good leadership kind of a thing.
Dr. Shiva, do you have any regrets professionally? You
Uh,
wanted to
I,
do something, you didn't do anything.
that was very early in my life. When I finished my 10th grade, that is when you have to choose between in this. I wanted to be in science for sure. Choose between engineering and biology. I wanted to be an engineer because most of my friends were engineering. They all went to the engineering. We used to call it as plus two as intermediate. Okay, so everybody got into the engineering. So I also applied and I got a seat in the mathematics group. But my father insisted me that I should become a doctor, and he made me change to the biology group. Okay, so there was a disappointment at that time. Probably it affected my first year or 11th grade, but afterwards, there was no looking back. It's okay. I went through the other direction, and I'm very happy with what I have achieved in life. And then things are moving smoothly, and then I'm happy. So uh, that was I could have become an engineer. My friends have all become engineers. So that was there. But now, no. Okay. That's what it is.
Something, because we were on the topic of sharing the insights to the younger generation. I would like to, you have shared your expertise and knowledge, and the pathway to take up leadership roles to the younger generation. Whereas I would like to share one regret of mine. That's why I asked you the question. I carry a regret in my mind.
What is it?
That is, I did not dream bigger enough.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, when I joined the industry, I had this big dream at that point in time to become a national head of a large company, to as a business head or leading a large company. For me, a large company was 100 crore company and about 100 people in the
Oh.
team. Okay.
Hmm.
And in fact, so to say, I ended up there. The last position I had was about 150 people and about 100 plus crore kind of turnover.
Very
Of course,
nice.
from a startup of about 15, 20 crore, we scaled it up to about 100 crore. But then I thought during that time, I mean, even though I too enjoyed thoroughly my career path through and through, and of course, before that, I also had, I was also responsible for about 250 crores business. That's that apart. All that I was thinking is why my thought was limited to uh, 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 leading a company in India. I could have dreamed of leading a global organization. I would have dreamed of leading $1 billion or a, more than a billion or maybe a $10 billion organization. I think our dreams limit us.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
So don't have to regret for what you have not
yeah.
achieved, but what we have achieved, we have to be on the positive side of it. And then
100%. The reason I use the word regret was to create that impact in the minds of people that many times when I also ask youngsters, what's your dream 5 years later? They may say that today I'm an area manager. I would like to become a regional manager. Or 10 years later, also they said regional manager. That's when I say, what stops you from thinking big? So, whatever I dreamt, I achieved. But today I look back and think, why did I only dream to become a
where did you stop there?
why did I my dream reach only to head a company in India with 100 200 people and not be a global leadership. That's probably our upbringing also. I don't know, but then
Yeah.
I always tell my younger ones to dream much bigger. Probably today we in India is at a stage where they can afford to dream bigger, or we should catalyze them to dream bigger. So as we dream of making IVD a global powerhouse, I think we also need IVD leadership, Indian leadership at the global level. So that,
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's
that's
you know
needed actually.
yes.
While I said what I have said about my regret in the initial stages, I did not stop my kids. I have two kids. Okay.
Right.
I did not stop them from doing what they wanted to do. Okay.
Yes.
I wanted my son to be an engineer because I did not become an engineer. So we put him in some coaching class.
Mm.
Within a month, he said that, Papa, I don't want to do this. So he chose it. He is a lawyer, so he has done it.
Wonderful.
My
Wonderful.
my daughter is in the finance. So both of them have chosen their paths, and then so they are happy. We are happy. So
Wonderful.
the other important thing that I don't want to extend it further on this topic. The thing is that many of the people in the younger generation, you said that circumstances also make us limit that. Many of them say, Sir, I want a promotion, but I want to be in the same place where I am. You want to be a country manager,
Same.
but you
Yeah.
want to be in your village.
Your
That's
hometown.
not
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to move, you need to change. So those are the things. That is the Indian culture. Probably we have the responsibility to take care of our parents and family and those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
there is a lot beyond that.
Yes. So, Lord, beyond MedTech, let us discuss. What beyond the MedTech, what are some of your personal passion or pastimes that keeps you energized? Even I know you are a very energetic person, even at this age, and I mean you're not. I mean, at you are past 60, so even
I'm
at this age,
66 actually.
wonderful. Even at this age, you are pretty energized, and so I'm sure you have something very interesting to share with us.
Two, three things that I do regularly. I keep myself fit in terms of my body or health. See, as you grow old, the serviceability increases. So I do go to the gym. I do yoga. I have been doing yoga for almost 10 years now, 9 years at least. So every day I do that one. That keeps me kind of mentally and physically alert. That is the first point of the thing. Second thing is, I do read quite a bit. May not be on the like a friction or anything. I like reading autobiographies. of people. And then nowadays, I am spending a lot of time. I don't know if you are connected with me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of postings
Yes.
on various topics, geopolitical, technical, and especially in the academia industry kind of a thing. So when I'm doing those things, I don't want to be wrong in what I'm doing. So I do some background reading and then do that one. That is another thing that I do it. My wife is a Carnatic classical musician, and then I have from the childhood in our family there is a lot of interest for music. So even though I don't sing or I have no greater knowledge, but I thoroughly enjoy the music, and I'm balancing myself in terms of what I do for work and what I do with, and with the family. Kids have grown up, and then interacting with them. When they were young, it was a different kind of treatment to them. Now they treat us differently, so we will have to adjust to that one. So those are all the things keeping me happy. And then what and we moved to Hyderabad. That is where we have been living for many years. Even though I was in Delhi for 28 years, we came back. And the last but not the least is all my childhood friends are back in Hyderabad. So we meet very, very regularly. And that is an ultimate thing that happens. We enjoy over a meal or over a drink, and then we really recollect our old childhood memories and then laugh a lot. So these are some of the things that keeps me going. I hope it will continue for some more time.
Dr. Shiva, when you talk about this socializing thing, I'm sure you would have read it. Scientists have researched for many, many years the reason behind some people living longer than the others. And the people who, I mean, they couldn't find any pattern. They tried, is it exercise? Is it diet? Is it stress? Is it what? The closest they could identify was stress. Stress being one of the things which are adverse to longevity. But apart from that, people who were otherwise fit, who were having very good diet, everything, they were also not having that kind of longevity. So longevity had nothing to do with all those things generally we thought. Then they finally reached the reason, that is how good your social network is.
Correct.
People
Exactly.
who have good social network as the age advances also are the ones who outlived the ones who did not have the social network, despite the fact that the other group also had a good diet, exercise, and other things to their credit. So when you spoke about social network, I am sure you will see the day when the Indian IVD industry becomes the global powerhouse.
Absolutely. I think I will dream for that, and I will pray every day to happen.
Yeah,
That I think we have to think positively. When you said social, it's all
social network.
positivity that you get from the
Yes,
thing.
yes,
So
yes.
I'm sure IVD industry and MedTech industry in general will become the
Yeah,
powerhouse of the world, and we
yes,
have the capability. And probably some of the leading Western countries are helping us to bring back the talent into India, and
yes,
then we will do well. Yeah,
yes. The best comes out when it is challenged.
absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
As you said, Madam is a Carnatic singer. I am learning Carnatic music for the past 2 years now.
Wow. So we should listen to you sometime. Yeah.
Some other day after the podcast.
Yeah.
This is more like a one-on-one conversation than a podcast, Dr. Shiva.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I
I
know
am
it
thoroughly
has to be
enjoying
like
this.
that.
Yeah,
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I learn. I will share with you after the call.
yeah,
Yesterday there was one podcast,
yeah,
beautiful,
yeah,
very very interesting. Yeah, I will share it with you.
yeah. So let me come to my final question today, because I've taken quite a lot of your time. So my final question for today's podcast is: what legacy do you hope to leave behind in the MedTech and diagnostic space, Dr. Shiva?
Legacy is customer delight. Customer delight is very, very important. We all talk of customer satisfaction. That's
Yep.
not enough.
Yep.
Customer delight is something that is important. In
Yep.
order to achieve the customer delight, there are a lot of things that one has to do behind. Okay.
Right.
You need to empathize with them. You need to provide the right kind of solution. You need to provide the right service at the right time. So these are all the things. So, and last but not the least, it is definitely high level of integrity. There is a lot of scope of we getting deviated in the positions that we have handled. Okay, there could be a lot of scope for doing mischief. Okay, but don't fall to that. Okay, you need to be highly integrity person, and that is what is important. So I think these are some of the things that I would like to. I should be known as, "Arey, ye banda was good in the customer support. He was honest. He did not expect anything." Today, most of the customers that we develop over a period of time are all my good friends. So some of them I am on first name basis. These are all very big customers. Say, for example, Apollos and Metropolis and SRLs and all those. So they have all become friends. How you become friends? It's not a relationship between a customer and a vendor. It is an individual to individual, and then in the process we deliver our professional obligations. I think
Wonderful.
that's what I see it.
Wonderful. It was great talking to you, Dr. Shiva. Uh, you know, I have learned quite a lot today. Do you have any last thoughts to share with us before we wind up today's podcast?
So it's very interesting that somebody is now looking at the industry in terms of doing these kinds of things like a podcast. I think we are one of the neglected areas. Okay. So what I would also suggest to you is, apart from the industry, you should also get somebody from the customer side. Say, for example, the leading lab managers
Yeah.
who would be able to provide. They would give their perspective. We may say everything positive about industry, but they would say what their impressions are about it. I
Yes.
think that would also good, so that people will learn from it. In the olden days in Ranbaxy and all, every year we used to have at least 3 to 4 weekly 1 week's training sessions. Those
Right.
have all disappeared. They are not there nowadays. Now you will not learn much from the virtual training sessions. You
Yeah.
need to be face-to-face training sessions. So I think in the absence of all those things, I think if you are able to bring in those kinds of things also, I would strongly advise bring some eminent people from the lab industry, laboratory side,
At lab side, yeah.
path lab side, and then who are using the medical devices. That would be great, I think.
It's a great suggestion, very practical suggestion, and we'll do that. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Shiva.
Thank you,
And I'm
Sanjeev.
sure, the viewers of this podcast would thoroughly enjoy your conversation, your insights. And with your permission, we will also share your LinkedIn URL to them so that they can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And so once again, I thank you, and thank you, viewers, for watching this whole episode till now, right from the beginning. And then please share your thoughts, comments, suggestions in the comment box below, as well as get in touch with MedDevice, be part of the MedDevice movement. And if you wish to be in touch with Dr. Shiva, as we said, we will put his LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn link in the description box so that you can learn from him directly. Let's all together collaborate and take our industry to a greater heights. Thank you, everybody, once again. Bye bye.
Thank you, Sangeet. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.